Good afternoon and a welcome to a brand new spanking segment, rather obviously titled In Conversation With, a segment specially designed to showcase the backstories of individuals who have made an impact. Thrive. Before we proceed, a quick round to let you know that I will be your host this afternoon, and I'm Anton Fowler, and I will take you through an hour of free-flowing discussion. So get ready, sit back, and enjoy the conversation. In today's conversation, it is my privilege to introduce, all the way from Toronto, Canada, Peter Goral, with a wealth of experience backing him, 23 years of experience to be exact. From recruiter to a radio talk show host to the founder of ArtEnvy.inc, he has pretty much covered it all. A very good morning to you, Peter.
Good morning, Anton. Pleasure to be here.
It's great. It's great to have you with us, Peter. So before we get into the crux of your speciality, I am intrigued. I do want to know, what was the journey that got you to this end title of social media business strategist? Tell us a little bit about that, Peter.
I'll try and shove about 30 years into a small capsule if I can. But I've always been a promotionary individual, and I think it's and I'm a creative, right? I was born a creative. I'm a visual artist, and it's something that I schooled in, and it's something that I have a passion for to start with, even before business. And actually, I bumped into business quite by accident, because when I emigrated to Canada from the UK, I came thinking that, I was just going to be an artist and do some commercial artwork and things like that. And I went to the local college, and I found out that I was already at a level that the college courses had gone past, and that the teacher did not have the same credentials as me. He had less. So I said, then I'm lost. And they said, no, we'd still like to have you here, but maybe you would consider some other subjects. Because I was like 17 years old, so I wasn't ready for the world yet. I had not finished my education, and he pointed me toward a business diploma, three-year business diploma program, and I thought, you know what, that's not a bad idea. And in hindsight, it was a fabulous idea, because it opened up a whole new world for me, and I got my start. I actually started in retail operations, because that was a place where, well, it's not as much today, but it was a place where a lot of people could get a job fairly quickly, fairly easily, and it was a vibrant industry. And I promoted myself all the way through. I spent a good 6 years with a major organization that had major national banners across Canada, about 13 different brands, and I was with the young man's fashion operation. And so I got into operations. I understood marketing. I understood people development. I got trained in so many great things. And one of the things that came out really quickly was the fact that I was generally very good at creating relationships where I enticed individuals to come and work with me. And hence, my recruiting efforts were very successful, not only for my own region, but for the company as a whole. And I quickly converted that idea into a recruitment, an executive recruiter. And I started by recruiting the best possible people in the retail space because I understood that operation. And time evolves.
Sure.
And the transition to technology occurred, and I watched where the effort and the money was being spent. And definitely technology was the enabling and an empowering business to be in. And I saw a very big gap in which became an opportunity for me to get into high-tech executive recruitment. And that is really where the big change came to me. It was almost like an epiphany, because I got to understand, and I'm not a technologist by any stretch of the imagination, but I am comfortable in the environment because I have worked with the individuals and I understand the individuals and I understand what it takes to build, produce, put something out there, market it, get it into market, open up new territories. I mean, I really became a kind of a nucleus for a lot of individuals around me to develop their businesses. So I was definitely a support function to the development of so many other good companies.
Wow. I mean, I've looked at your journey, Peter, and your journey is an amazing one at that, right? Retail operations, you've just spoken about business development, transportation, logistics, business transformation, change management. Like I said at the beginning, you've covered them all. How has all of that, can I ask you, enriched your perspective for the role that you do today?
That's a great question, and I think that it defaults to this. If you're going to take advice from someone, it's important that that individual understands the issues that you face. And while I have this checkered background in industry and business, I have not as yet bumped into something that I couldn't help anyone out with. So when I actually sit with a CEO of a company and he says, I'm having issues with my operation, I'm having issues with my supply chain, I'm having issues with hiring the right people, I know exactly what he's going through. And I become an advocate for his goals. And I actually help him achieve his goals. So the enrichment is the knowledge that I've extrapolated from my journey, come to a head as a strategist. I say strategist because I don't just develop content. I develop content with a means to go forward.
Sure.
I always want to understand where the client wants to be. In fact, I always start with the end game in mind and then reverse engineer the necessary components in order to get there. It's the best way of doing anything. It's problem solving 101, right? My game.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think in most failures, that would be the very reason that people forget or fail to work with the end game in mind. Although my next question to you is the switch from a marketing to a social media consultant. I know you did this because you have the context to work with the organizations, but I've also seen this with n number of people switching from a marketing role to a social media consultant. Is that would you call that a natural evolution of the role?
Yes, and one that the times demanded us to do. when you think about the way that business used to be done, is that you either had a product or a service and you set up shop. And I don't mean necessarily retail shop, but you maybe set up an office or set up a home base of some sort. I mean, what's the first thing you did? The first thing you did was probably take out some advertising, and maybe, you know, if you had some money, you'd do something on radio. You'd send out flyers, you'd send out brochures. Well, it's not that that has stopped. It's that it's evolved to, and it's been digitally transformed. And so, you know, there's been this almost high impact. It's almost like marketing on steroids is social media, because not only does it allow you to get your message out, but it allows you to hear immediate responses from your audience, and it allows you to also adjust and justify your position immediately too. And so that transition is a natural one. And I don't think it's going to end here, because I actually think that there's going to be a time, and I think we're almost there right now, when you think of being forced into having to jump on like a Zoom call or a team call like we're on right now, speaking to one another. This is like the new normal business. So I literally have to make sure that the package that I'm presenting to you from a personal perspective, it's locked down, and that my message is clear, right? And it's so important that we don't forget some of the old things. I'm a bit of a traditionalist. I still like the idea of meeting someone, shaking their hand, cutting a deal with them, having them understand everything. And you can't always take that position today, because there's interpretation and perception of what you're doing, you know, kind of falls into the mix. But yes, I know that was a bit of a long-winded way to say, yes, it has evolved, and it's going to even go further.
And I agree, and I think it makes perfect sense. Long-winded, but it is crucial. But on the next thought was, Peter, you've been very, very vocal about the statement, you are your brand. I want to know the concept behind it. Why is it that you've been pushing that statement, that message out over the past year or so?
Well, it's a lot to do with the unique values of you as a person. I actually don't care if you're a CEO of a $300 million company or a $3 million effort. The reality is, people still buy from people. And
correct.
Based on that premise, it's how I present myself that's going to promote some activity, some engagement with you. So when I say you are your brand, I'm promoting the idea of you thinking about yourself first, taking an introspective look at your life. Who are you? What do you stand for? What don't you stand for? What's your threshold for pain? What do you like? What do you do when you get up first thing in the morning? What kind of person are you to deal with? Because we used to call it in the old days, your reputation. Your reputation is what people think of you when you've left the room. And social media is, and that branding, that personal brand, it's the same. It's one and the same thing. It's what you say. It's what you don't say. It's how you react to things. It's how you'll tolerate things that are in front of you. And that is a unique value to each and every one of us. Even if you were a twin, Anton, your twin, they may look the same, but I guarantee you there'll be a quirky little unique value that makes them who they are versus an exact copy of who you are.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, absolutely. And I think going back to that statement, and we often say, you've got to sell yourself to the customer in the traditional sense before you sell your product. Because if they don't trust you, if they don't buy you, nothing that you sell, even the best product in your hand, no one's going to buy it. So in that sense, it makes perfect sense to hear you say you are your brand. But social media or marketing or social media today doesn't work in the manner that traditional marketing used to work. I mean, long years ago, a marketing campaign would take months and months of planning and execution. But with social media, it's almost instant. You can think of something today and blink, and you're back tomorrow morning launching that campaign. And the competition is so much that it is difficult for organizations to keep ahead of the competition. So I guess my question at this point would be, how do you keep ahead of the game? How do you keep ahead of the associated overwhelm that comes in? Is there a saturation point, Peter?
I default to one thing, and that is the honesty and the devotion towards the message not changing about me, about what I represent, regardless of what's going on around us. And that is another value associated with you are your brand. There is so much noise in the market. It's hard to decide what's valid, what's valuable. Why should I listen to this person? Somebody's trying to sell me something on the street corner, and they've got a blowhorn, and then there's somebody on the other side of the street, and they've got a great big television screen. It's like that's the kind of competition that exists out there. It's crazy. You're right, and it is instantaneous. People seem to want instant recognition, but I still push individuals back, and I suggest to them this: look, while we are rapid in the way that we approach things today, people still have mature values inside their head. They still appreciate a good message, a good story. They appreciate an emotional connection. And those are the things that you should be thinking of rather than trying to earn money, right? In all honesty, if I've got two people in front of me and one of them says to me, I actually care about you, and the other one doesn't, I'm going with the guy who cares about me. End of story. Like, the person who shows me that he cares over and above what he's pushing to me, or how much it is, or how good a deal he thinks it is. I'm not buying that. I'm buying the human to human connection, even in social media. I want to see that people are thought out. You talked about they used to do a lot of planning. Well, you still should do the same amount of planning for social media, because you need to go out and do your research, find out what makes people tick, what people respond to is as important as your product. You'll never find anybody take anything to market without saying, is this good for this? Is this good for this region? Maybe I should run some trials. Maybe I should do a proof of concept. Those things are still around and still need to be played out.
Thank you, Peter, for that. Just a quick one for those who've joined in. We are in conversation with Peter Goral, all the way from Canada. He is a social media business strategist, and this is an hour designed to bring inspiration through the backstories of modern day leaders. So thank you for that, Peter. And I agree, people do need, or organizations or anyone using social media should be authentic in their messages, and it should address the target audience genuinely, and that makes sense. But What puzzles me, though, is that in the modern day adverts that we see, there are what we call controversial ads, right? Cheeky controversial ads. So Pepsi comes to mind off the top of my head. But then there is the tone deaf. I guess, where is the line between being controversial and tone deaf?
Well, there are some people who purposely play the tone deaf card, right? Because they believe that they believe that by stirring things up, they'll get your attention. I mean, we've all seen that. But I think people are tiring of that. I really think that they are starting to say, and I hate to use this term, that's the fake news, right? Or, you know, I didn't make that famous, and so I don't take credit for it. But the reality is
Sure.
that I think people honestly, you can't insult their intelligence. We're all smart. See, today, if you have a phone and an internet connection, you can actually start a business.
Correct.
And that business could be something as simple as giving advice, or it could be something as coaching generally, or anything. It could be something even smaller. And people know that there's so much information available to them. People are more, they're more research driven. For instance, I think there are more homes sold on the internet than there are in face-to-face conversations anymore, because people want the freedom to sit comfortably in their own home, go through the information, decide what's important to them, see if all the boxes are checked for them, and then make their purchase and unhinged, right? Like they don't want to be tagged to someone. They don't want someone driving them crazy every minute. So this controversy sometimes that you see in social media is because they want, it's somebody wanting to disturb somebody in their current workflow. That's all it is, because people are smart. People have gotten really, really smart, and they use technology to help them make their everyday decisions. It helps them concierge their life a little better. So when someone comes to the market that's disruptive, that's got a disruptive idea, has got a product that they really want to make someone stand up and pay attention, they will do almost anything to get your attention. I don't belong to that school. The school I belong to and believe in is the school of connecting with people authentically, as you said, making great connections that lead to engagements that may lead to business. You cannot say that it will, but you can probably safely say that it might, right?
True. But social media is social media, whether it's positive or negative, right? But if we take the negative aspect of social media, I know in today's world, anything negative is almost instantaneous. It comes up there, it damages a brand, it damages the situation, whatever they have worked towards building, right? My concern is, in the event of a negative press, in the instance of a faux pas, how do you handle that from a social media perspective, Peter?
Well, I've seen corporations respond both good and bad. To ignore something is to add fuel to the fire, no matter what, because if you thought your best intentions are served by ignoring it and hoping that it'll go away, you're wrong to start with. you do have to face the music. I'll just give you a little anecdotal story. I was traveling to California. I think it was just this past January.
Okay.
And they messed up my seats. My television wasn't working. It was a disaster. It was a long flight. I was tired. I was flying overnight because I had meetings with a new client the next day. So I wanted to be sure that I was rested, but at the same time, I wanted to get some work done. And the Wi-Fi was off, everything. And I literally got on my phone and I said, Air Canada, major fail. You know, here am I. And I took a picture of the lady that was supposedly like the attendant, and she was actually quite nasty to me. And she actually raised her voice and she became argumentative with me. So I took a picture of her and I took a sound bite and I sent it to Air Canada on my phone. By the time I landed in San Jose, California, I had two or three credits on my credit card and an upgrade for my flight back 2 or 3 days later. You see, something good came out of, you know, being responsive on social media. And if you take the onus as a developer of a social message, you should also take the accountability if you've gone wrong or if you've steered someone wrong. Rectify it immediately in the same way that I would, Anton, if I hurt you personally, that I should step up and say, you know, Anton, I'm sorry about that. I was wrong. Let me fix that for you, right? That needs to be the attitude. It isn't always there. And sometimes it's on purpose, right? Because sometimes you're just an agitator, you know, and you're looking for ways and means to make your point. That's all.
Interesting. But you don't often see that. And I think in most cases, organizations or owners of brands, social media, whenever there is a negative press, they generally try to ignore it or brush it under the carpet. And I think that's where things begin to go downhill. But you're right, for those who meet it full on and are able to grab the bull by the horn, so to speak, are able to address the issue, apologize, rectify, regardless of the failure, there's always been a success story at the end of it. And I have to agree with you on that. But on that note also, I guess, where does one go for inspiration? And I'm asking you this, Peter, because when it comes to social media, when it comes to images or ads, it's quite natural for somebody to turn around and say, yeah, I've seen that, or I know what that is going to be, you know, been there, done that. Kind of an attitude pops up almost immediately. But if an organization was to go out in favor of a social media campaign, where do they go for inspiration?
In my mind, and the best organizations and the best people find it in their personal attachment to the business or the effort that they're involved in. Just going to give you another really, really good example of something really current. There's a client of mine who is a real estate broker, and he has a building organization. One of the things he does diligently, which is inspirational, and I work with him. I work with him hand in glove, and I develop a lot of his content and develop a lot of his stories. But they're not my stories. They're his stories. The story is his. It's how he got started, how he made it through the bumps and grinds, how he made the deals that he's doing, how he created the success. And now what he's doing, and I give him full marks for this, he is transferring that inspiration to his team and inviting others to join him, because it's not like he's stopped learning. It's just that he's now sharing. And so when I think of what you need to look for in inspiration in social, is like, get right back to the you are your brand elements of the business. Get back to who you are. Take an introspective look. Share something with your audience that is meaningful to the bigger cause. I mean, first of all, you have to admit to yourself, you're not for everybody and you're not for anyone. But someone out there you are going to resonate with. Even if you're just telling a story about your life where you had a bump in the road and something wasn't quite perfect, but you found your way through it. You found your way through it maybe by hard work, help of a mentor, help of a coach, something like that, right? But tell somebody, share that with somebody. And then what happens is your brand is elevated. When I think of this young man and his business, I can't help advocating for him, because he impresses me daily with the fact that he's not keeping the story to himself. He's sharing it with others and putting a magnifying glass on top of it so that more people see it and more people benefit from it. I think it was, Sister Teresa said, you've got to find a way to share with many. You've got to teach the many. Like you can't keep something to yourself forever. It's just inherently wrong, right? It's just not natural. You should. Sure. We're social people, social media, social people. We're interacting with one another. We should talk to one another, listen to one another, share with one another. And on that front, that is where the best ideas come from, the best developments, the best business. And I may not have believed this 30 years ago, but I sure do today. And I know there are a lot of people who can relate to that.
Oh, definitely, definitely. We are in conversation with Peter Goral, the social media business strategist, all the way from Toronto, Canada. And this is an hour designed to bring in inspiration through the backstories of modern day leaders. And you're right, Peter. We do go back, I guess, for inspiration to you are your brand, and then sharing your stories and to gain inspiration from them is something that we should do. But in today's world, we looked at negative press, we looked at issues. Another concern that comes up, and it's quite often just come up in discussions as well, and people have asked this as well. When creating a social media campaign ad, be it local or for the international market, we need to be sensitive in that we don't offend people. And sometimes I think when it comes to social media, because it's so quick and so instantaneous, that people often forget or fail to look at that particular angle. And we end up offending people, offending societies, groups, etc. How do you avoid that, Peter? Is there a code to crack?
There really isn't. It dates back to just being respectful with people, period. I don't care. Like, there are people who jump on social just to be disruptive. That's all there is to it. But in business, I mean, there's no place. There's no place for racism. There's no place for ageism. There's no place for sexism. There's none of that. I mean, if you are a bona fide business or an individual, you shouldn't even be thinking. You shouldn't even have to think. It should be second nature to you that you take a wide open, honest look at yourself. Now, there's a few arguments out there that you can offend almost anybody today. And that's a really difficult position to put yourself in. And I'm saying to you right now, don't take on the accountability of the world that surrounds you. I like to talk back to the fact that you are not for everyone. You are not for anyone. As long as you hold a sincere, devout position to being respectful, caring, authentic, put it out. I mean, and they're going to be haters, right? That's a known fact. I can tell you right now, I'm actually a really sensitive guy. I'm an emotional guy. I'm a person who doesn't do much without thinking about it. And I know that there are people out there who don't care for me. I know that, but that's okay. I'm okay with that because they have a place in society like I do. The people that my message resonates with, I want to spend my good energy with them. I don't want to be caught up in whether I should think overly careful about what I want to say. Because even saying something like, hey, I don't care if you don't like this. This isn't necessarily for you. This is something I grew up with. This is my opinion. I can share it with you. I'm allowed to, just in the same way that I let the guy next to me say anything he likes. Now, I have two options when he says anything he likes and I don't like it. I can respond and I can say, "Oh, you're a wisecracker, or you're dumb." I can say that, but what does that get me? That doesn't put his argument any better or worse, and it certainly doesn't do it from mine. But better, I should say something like, "Hey, I never thought of it that way. Geez, yeah, tell me more about that." Because I want to make sure that I want to make sure I'm getting you right, because to me, that's not how I grew up. I didn't grow up in accosted by anything. I don't know what it's like to live under military regime or anything like that. I mean, I have no idea what that feels like. So why should I stand up and pretend that I do? Well, I will talk from my heart. I will talk from my life experiences, and what I do with my clients when I work with them is I have conversations to bring out those same experiences so that when I'm representing them, I'm talking as if they are talking. And the value is in the authenticity, the solid respect for everyone around you. And I am not going to take on the world's troubles. That's just not my role.
True, but I suspect that there may be quite a few who would argue that you need to be disruptive in how you think and plan your social media campaign in order to be effective.
That you know what? That is a real bone of contention with me, because I can tell you right now, when I've worked out the real value behind either a product or a service and added the value of the humankind that's attached to this service, that is such a winning combination. The more disruptive that you try to be, it has a way of working against you. It really does. It's almost like pushing too hard, you know, and you push sometimes too hard, you're going to hurt yourself. You should use the power of your audience, and you should understand the power of your audience. I mean, that's one of the first things we do before we even start pushing things out is like, what are our goals? Who do we want to get to? Who do we want to entice? Who do we think is motivated to listening to our message? Those are and ask them. Today, go and ask your client. Even before they're your client, ask them, what is it that would make your life easier? What is it that you're looking for? Right? I mean, not enough people do that. They just sit and they say, oh, I've got this great idea. Oh, I've looked around and I've got this great idea. And here it is. It comes in a box. It's $9.99 and I'm pushing it out to everybody. Well, guess what? You might as well throw a leaf into a windstorm, right? There's nothing happening there. But if you're thought out and you ask people what they wanted, what they need, and respond, you stand a better chance.
Sure. Interesting. Another aspect of social media that I found interesting in the modern world is that quite a number of organizations or even individuals showcase their CSR on social media. Now, what are your thoughts on that, Peter?
You say their CSR, their customer
as in
service,
social responsibilities.
Oh yeah,
and charity work.
Oh man, I love this. I don't mind people bragging about what they do. That's okay. There's a place for that, you know. But does a lion tell you he's a lion? Does he? No, he doesn't. He just shows up and is a lion. I'm sorry. But if I have to tell you how good I am at something, I might be trying to convince me more than you. That is my answer.
That's an interesting take indeed. Right. So I guess we're mindful of the time as we come towards the end. When people set out to do what you do, Peter, either from a marketing background into the social media consultancy bit, or even to work within the social media space, or if they from any other industry, as you've done as well, to walk into social media because it is online, it is interesting, it is unique. What are some of the biggest stumbling blocks or challenges for someone to get into this industry right, from what you've seen, Peter?
Well, the biggest mistake you can make is to think that you're just going to jump into it and just start marketing. You're not. You need to be a humanist. You need to be a people person. You need to be an engager, a connector. The actual social media activity looks after itself. But once you've developed your connections and your value proposition, once you realize your unique brand value, I don't care who you are. I don't even care if you are somebody who walks dogs for a living in your neighborhood. I just want you to show up as the nicest, most amenable individual on your city street, so that people say, I trust that person with my dog. I love my dog. I don't want anything to happen with my dog. That person has got to, like, you can't go to school to get that. That's
True.
You're it's something you can appreciate. It's something you can be mentored in, but it's something you need to have an appreciation for in the first place. You don't automatically become a social media strategist overnight. Listen, I have worked 20 to 30 years in multiple different avenues, as you've already mentioned. And I'm using every ounce of that experience to understand the person I'm talking to and understand the audience once I'm publishing something for them to read. I seriously think about everything before I put it out there. I do not fire off like a cannon, right? I'm taking a concerted effort. If you want to move into this industry, I'm not going to say it's easy, because it isn't, because not everybody can automatically stand up and say something generic that's going to be appreciated by a large number of people. That's just not going to happen. But you do need to realize the one thing that you carry with you all the time is this human value. And when you bring that human value forward, allow it to steer your narrative. Allow your look, your feel, your image. Control the narration. Control the story about you, if nothing else. Most of the things that I've been involved with are not really about me, but I make it about me, because I add my values, my human values, to the message. And that's actually what's more important than anything else, because somewhere along the line, you're going to bump into someone who says, you know, Anton, I really like what you just said about 5 minutes ago. And yeah, I actually want to talk to you more about that. And I could see us collaborating on that. That's the kind of thing I want to see happen, right?
For sure, for sure. Peter, I mean, that is crucial. I think being authentic is crucial. Being the brand that you are is important. On that note, tell us a little bit about your organization, ArtEnvy.inc. What does it do for organizations? Why is it unique and special, Peter?
Well, it's my brand to start with, you know, and it's something that I evolved. Originally, we incorporated the company back in 2011 to actually, I'm an artist, I'm a visual artist. And so I incorporated that company to sell my work through the organization, because I was involved corporately with somebody else. So it was, in a sense, a sideline. And my wife actually managed the administration of that organization. But then as I moved and transformed from corporate to the entrepreneur that I always was, I just literally used the incorporated company and pulled in You Are Your Brand underneath it as a subset. And what I actually do is more than social media, because, and this may shock you and it may shock the audience when I declare this, but I am not a marketing guy. I am actually, I'm not a marketing guy. I'm actually a business strategist. I'm actually an operations individual. I know how to run a company. I've run companies. I've run sales teams successfully. I've run operations. I've taken all that, and I know a thing or two about developing business. And if I was to default to a specific role, I'd say one of the things that I actually do is help people and companies develop their business, actually sell, actually increase revenues. Yes, I do content, but I don't just do content. I sit with the clients, we evaluate their goals, we reverse engineer the activities that are required. I will be very honest with them about how much effort they're going to need what kind of budget they're going to require in order to get there. And if they don't have it, then I will help them obtain it. I mean, I'm working with a startup right now who's bootstrapped. I know what that takes. That takes a lot of work. And there's not a lot of money on the table, but it takes more work. And I'm in it. I put myself in it. I've embedded my heart and my soul and my energy into this organization. And I'm going to be rewarded later. I know the reality. I know the reality of that position, you know, and that's how I remain constant. And that's why people continue to call me and continue to ask me to, you know, and engage with me. I'll be honest with you. I have not made a cold call, a phone call in probably 6 years. I've never had to pick up the phone and say, "Hey, John Smith, it's Peter Goral from Art Envy, and I'm just wondering whether you need a pound of marketing," right? Like, it's just not gonna happen.
No, but I guess the real truth, as the saying goes, is behind every successful man, there's equally a successful woman. So credit to your wife for getting that off the road. As we come to the end of this session, some closing wisdom from you, Peter.
You know, I think regardless of where you find yourself, regardless of what your goals are, regardless of what business you're in, you have to be true to yourself. I know I didn't say that probably for the first time, but you really do. I mean, you have to take the introspective look at yourself. It's no good trying to be somebody else. You'll never achieve that. When you idolize somebody and say, "Oh, I want to be a successful person like that. Oh, I wish I had that car. Oh, I wish I had that house." Man, are you on the wrong journey? Like, stop that right away, and just take time to yourself and check yourself out. Ask yourself, what am I motivated by? What do I like best? What bothers me about what I'm doing? What's troublesome around me? Like, figure that all out. You will soon quickly be pointing to yourself and you're saying, "You know what? You're not such a bad guy after all. You've got some really good talents here." At the end of the day, if I did nothing else and sat at my easel and painted on canvas, I would be a very happy camper. I would be but I knew long ago I didn't want to be a starving artist, right? So I did something about it. That you have to figure it out. I mean, no, not even a coach or a mentor is actually going to, you know, get you to that spot that you can find yourself and be happy with yourself. Because if you have trouble with that, you're going to have a lot more trouble when you decide to take the step out into the wild world of business and commerce and try to make a name for yourself. Don't waste your time. Just enjoy being who you are, figure out what it is you love to do, and make something of that.
Fantastic. So be authentic, be genuine, be you. In today's world where social media can be a highly effective way to increase brand awareness, I suppose, bringing in customers can only be done if it's used the right way. So Peter, thank you very much. I know you're a busy man and this is an early morning for you, but thank you for carving out a moment in time from your busy schedule. And I can honestly say this was an hour of a thrilling conversation indeed. And what a story, and what an amazing takeaway of pure inspiration. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you, Anton. It's been a pleasure.
Always a pleasure. And to our audience, thank you for staying tuned, and I hope you enjoyed our segment. Stay tuned For next week, we have another interesting personality lined up. Do watch our social media space for the links to join in and for more info. If you've missed a part of the conversation, or if you've missed the conversation with Peter, it will be up on our YouTube channel. So do visit, do subscribe, and hit the notification button to stay updated, and remember to share. A quick thank you to our technology partners, H1, for going strong with our 3rd season and for always being around. With this, I bid you a wonderful rest of the day. Stay safe, stay productive.